Hi guys, my battle tag is bsunbdmn, and I started a thread on the forums about giving uh, gear and build advice to new monks. And since then, I've had a ton of friend requests asking for advice, and it's really taken up a lot of my time. So I thought I'd just make a guide to help the new monks out, and hopefully this will explain things a little better than what I've been able to do with just through text chat and things like that. So the first thing I want to talk about is effective DPS versus paper DPS. This number right here is your paper DPS, also known as sheet DPS. It's a number that everyone is asking, how can I raise this number? Um, what's my next gear upgrade and stuff to raise my DPS? What weapon, what should I get on my weapons to raise this number? Well, it's not always about raising this number here. Um, just a simple tweak to your build or gear can raise your effective DPS, which isn't reflected here, but you will notice that you're clearing things faster. You're doing more damage. An example of effective DPS versus paper DPS is someone who uses Tempest Rush versus someone who doesn't. Someone who uses Tempest Rush can get to the mobs faster than someone who isn't using a move-based skill. So, for instance, the person who's using Tempest Rush is already on to the next mob doing damage, while the person who is not is still running around trying to find another monster to kill. So that's an example of the person using Tempest Rush having more effective DPS than the person who's not, when this number being equal between the two. Um, another example is hidden modifiers on gear. On the Wonkim Lao, lightning skills deal 24% more damage. That 24% more damage is a random number. It can roll up to 25 and down to I think like 15 or something. I'm not really sure about how low it goes, but you definitely want a high number on that lightning skills deal more damage. That 24% is not calculated into your sheet DPS. So um, another example would be on a Stone of Jordan, the damage against elites, the crit hit chance by wave of light, um, and also even the spirit gen, because the more spirit you can generate, the more spirit you can spend. A lot of your high damage skills are spirit spenders, so that's just, it's just a no-brainer. The more spirit you can generate, the more damage you can do. Also, another example would be like uh, the four set bonus on the Innis set. It reduces the resource cost of Sweeping Wind by 70. And as you can see, the resource cost of Sweeping Wind is 75, so it only costs 5 spirit to use that skill. So as you can see, I can hit Sweeping Wind over and over and over and over, and it's not even draining my spirit pool because I regenerate enough spirit. And if I go back to without it, look how much spirit that takes away. So um, that's another example. And you might think, well, I only have to hit it once. Well, when you're Tempest Rushing between mobs, or if you don't use Tempest Rush, if you're just running, you know, um, chances are that it's going to drop off if you don't hit it again before you can get to another mob. So another example is of effective DPS versus paper DPS is things like something as simple as using a passive skill one with everything. If you can gear out of one with everything, you can use that passive skill for a different skill. So which could potentially buff your effective DPS, or you could go defense on that other skill. Um, let's see, attack speed. This is another kind of it affects effective DPS in a way because your attacks per second. If you can attack more times per second, you're critting more per second, and you're generating more spirit per second. So um, And the more spirit you can generate, like I said before, the more spirit you can spend. So the higher number on your attacks per second, the better, in my book, because it's not as important on a two-hand build, but on a dual wield, you definitely want the most attacks per second you can get. Um, let's see. Gearing out of one with everything is it's not an easy thing to do, but and it can be a little expensive. But the way you do it is, excuse me, is you try to get some EHP on every piece of gear you have. So what I do is, even on my rings and amulet, my gloves, they all have a little bit of EHP. Those are your big DPS slots, your amulet, your rings, and your gloves. But you want to try to get some EHP on each piece. So I go with resist and armor on my ring. I got some vitality on my amulet. I got some vitality on my gloves. Um, the belt is a, if you're going with the witching hour, that's a high DPS slot as well, but it also has some EHP in there too. Your pants are obviously a high DPS slot, but um, I got some vitality on there. Boots are a little more EHP than other slots, but you get the idea. You want to get all resist on every slot. When you're trying to gear out of one with everything, you don't want to go all resist, poison resist on one piece, and then all resist, arcane resist on one piece, and all resist and physical resist on one piece to try to get all these numbers the same. What I do is I go with all resist on pretty much everything, and then I buff a couple of the resistances that I think are the most important to buff, like the physical resistance on my bracers and belt, and then I throw a little fire resist on my shoulders. I'm not saying you have to copy this exactly, but I think that the physical resist is definitely the one that you want to go with first, and then I like to go with fire because some of the fire damage in the game is the most is the highest damaging, like Molten and the Blazing Guardians. And with physical resist, a lot of the damage in the game is physical, obviously, because melee is physical damage, and every monster pretty much in the game does melee damage. Also, some of the elite affixes are physical damage, such as like the Desecrator, the fire chains. I know it says fire, but it's actually physical. Um, and then another reason why I go with physical and fire over some of these other slots is because it seems like arcane and poison are really, really overpowered, and you can have 700 all resist here, and you get stuck in a poison pod from a tree, and you're done. Same with arcane. If you get jailed you know on an arcane that's coming around, and you're not out at the end of it, you're stuck close to it. You're you know you're done. So it doesn't really matter with those two. I don't really feel like, and lightning isn't doesn't occur often enough in the game to warrant buffing that very much. So as well as cold, you're gonna get frozen regardless. So especially if you're not using Serenity in your skills. So that's why I move away from that. And also, you know, you know, 500 or so in cold is plenty to not get one-shotted by the freeze. And if you do get frozen and an arcane is coming around or whatever else, it doesn't really matter because you're gonna die. Um, so that's why I go with physical and fire. And is there anything else I want to talk about this? Let me look. I think that's it. I think everything else I'm going to talk about, I'll talk about on the individual builds, and I'm just going to go from there. So I hope this is going to help you guys out. I really enjoy helping people out with their monks, and you know, it's fun to see people go from having a monk that can only survive and do damage in like MP 4 or 5, and getting them up to MP 10 or maybe MP 7, 8, somewhere in there, just helping them move up MP levels and helping them understand the monk a little better is. All right, guys. So I'm gonna start the build guides with the cookie cutter. That's like pretty much the original build for the monk, and it kind of evolved into what's been known as bi-gen and tri-gen builds now. So, but to start out, the cookie cutter build is this: Fist of Thunder, Thunderclap, Serenity Ascension, Breath of Heaven, Blazing Wrath, Sweeping Wind Cyclone, Munching Conviction Overawe, Blinding Flash, Faith in the Light, Exalted Soul, One with Everything, and Seize the Initiative. The cookie cutter build, in my opinion, is best suited for the One Kim Lao, or I should say the One Kim Lao is best suited for the cookie cutter build because of your main damage is coming from Fist of Thunder, which is a lightning based skill, and you have Sweeping Wind Cyclone, so which your cyclones do lightning damage. So, and the Wong Kim Lao does 24% more damage to lightning skills. So, um, in my opinion, the Wong Kim Lao Echoing Fury combo is probably the best thing for the cookie cutter build because um, the Echoing Fury adds a ton more attacks per second. So I mean, if you look at my attacks per second, it's 2.26 and 2.57. If I switch that out for just a sword, it's just a flat 2.2 for both. The sword doesn't have any increased attack speed on it. It's a 1.4 attacks per second sword. So um, the Echoing Fury really raises your attacks per second, which it also has the fear on it, which people hate. But if you're using Fist of Thunder, Thunderclap, you can chase down the monsters who have been feared pretty easily. And the reason why people use this particular set of skills with the cookie cutter is because um, you're basically buffing your Fist of Thunder damage by quite a bit. So if I pop the Breath of Heaven and I use the Blinding Flash, you can see I'm already buffed up to 338 damage just for the 3 seconds. But also with the mantra of conviction on, that doesn't show up here like I talked about before, effective DPS versus paper DPS, you can see that 48% more damage and 30% more damage and 15% more damage. That's a lot of more damage you're going to do. Also with the 24% more damage, and you're just using Thunderclap is your main DPS. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit in the fields here on how this build works. You want to get your Fist of Thunder up, or I'm sorry, your Sweeping Wind up right away. Just start banging on stuff. When these bigger guys come out, that's when I do the 3-second buff and hit the blind also. So here we go. Here's another big tree. And you can see that killed it relatively quickly compared to when it's unbuffed. But what you want to do is you want to keep your mantra with the 3-second buff pretty much all the time. I mean, you're not really using any other spirit spenders with this build. They're not really spirit intensive, I should say. You are using spirit spenders, but for the most part, the mantra is your only spirit spender that's going to spend a lot of spirit. So whenever you're fighting, you want to just keep that 3-second buff up all the time. And like I said before, when you're fighting the bigger stuff, pop both of them at the same time, and you'll do a lot more damage. Be mindful of your Breath of Heaven, Blazing Wrath falling off because it does last 45 seconds and then it falls off, so you want to keep an eye out for that. So here I'm on a tree, I hit both, and then the tree goes down relatively quickly. See how I feared him, and then I just chased him down with the teleport. So there's that, and then people started to modify this build a little bit by dropping some of the like the Breath of Heaven and the Blinding Flash, because you can see if you look at my DPS right now, 169, 484. When I pop the Breath of Heaven, it's 194, 907. Okay, remember that number, 194, 907. If I get rid of that and I switch out, I'll let this cool down. If I switch out Blinding Flash, actually, should I go? I think most people switched out Blinding Flash right away because it's the only 30. It's only lasts for 3 seconds. So what most people did was they switched out Blinding Flash for another Spirit Generator, like Wave 100 Fists or Deadly Reach. With Wave 100 Fists, they went Blazing Fists, and with Deadly Reach, they went Foresight. And that's what. And when they went Tri-Gen, they did both. So you could do either or for this build right now. What I do is usually if I did the Bi-Gen, I go with the the Way of the 100 Fists because it's just more attacks per second. So Wave 100 Fists, Blazing Fists, and Fists of Thunder, Thunderclap are the new build is what they went to. And so if you switch that out, now you're doing constant damage instead of just that buffed damage for the 3 seconds. Now you're doing a lot more constant damage with all your buffs. So what you do is you get your fist or your Wave 100 Fists buff up, and when it's about to drop off, or every so often, you just hit it once. And also, oops, sorry, I should have. Here, let me kill these guys quick. I should have also noted that you change the passive. Let me go back to town. You change the passive to Combo Strike. You don't really need Exalted Soul with these builds, but so a lot of people change that to Combo Strike, or you can drop one with everything. If you've managed to gear out of one with everything, you could switch that. But in this example, I'm going to keep it because a lot of monks use one with everything. So with the Combination Strike, each different Spirit Generator increases your damage by 8% for 3 seconds. So that doesn't mean you have to keep switching back and forth. Once you hit the one Spirit Generator and then use the other one, you can continually just use the other one, and you'll have 16% more damage until you don't attack anything for 3 seconds. So, and even if you were to use Combo Strike with just one Spirit Generator, it does buff you that 8%. So keep that in mind. So now back to an example here of how this works, or how to use it. So you can see I buffed my mantra up. I got the Wave 100 Fist buff up. You want to keep that going, and then just keep buffing. Keep the three stacks on your Wave 100 Fist up all the time. So you just keep hitting the mantra of conviction over and over. You keep the three stacks up on the Wave 100 Fists, and that's just how you do it. And then you just attack stuff, and then again be mindful of Blazing Wrath falling off. And as you can see, I don't really need Exalted Soul. I haven't ran out of spirit at any point. Sometimes I do forget to hit the mantra, but for the most part it's up all the time. And you can pretty much just run through everything. Just face roll everything with this build. It's not as fast as some other builds, but you know, it's just, and let me show you here. With the 16% from the combo strike, and I still have the Breath of Heaven Blazing Wrath up. I'm just going to hit this real quick. Okay, so I'm doing a constant 243k. And before with the both buffs, I was doing I think, what was it, 330k when I had but that was only for 3 seconds. So now I'm constantly doing 243 instead of my base unbuffed damage of 160. 160 whatever it was. So there you have that build. Now as soon as I kill these guys, I'll run back to town and switch to the tri-gen, and you'll see. So keep that in mind too. The 243k, that's with the Breath of Heaven Blazing Wrath. So now what people did was they would drop the Breath of Heaven. Everyone seems to want to keep Serenity. That really helps you in when you're fighting elites. You know, to get out of jail, they're frozen, or you know, if you're about to die because you're, you know, just trying to sit and face roll. But I will change out Serenity for a third Deadly Reach Foresight. As you can see, Foresight, third strike increases the damage of all attacks by 18% for 30 seconds. So now, coupled with Combo Strike, that Combo Strike ups your damage to 24%. You have the 18% here, plus with the 24% on the Wong Kim Lao. That's a serious increase to damage to your Fist of Thunder. So, but the way to use this is anytime you run into a mob, the Foresight stays up for 30 seconds, and what that looks like is, what that looks like when you have that buffed up is a little green kind of thing around your body. I'll just run back to town so you can see that quick. Okay, see this little green? This is the indicator that the 18% more damage is up right now. The indicator for this is your stacks up here, and Combo Strike just is reflected in your overall DPS. So I don't really want to fight this elite right now because it'll waste time showing you how to do this. I'm going to anyway. Okay, so what I did was I hit 3 times with the Foresight, and then I'm just, see, Serenity would have been a good idea. But for this example, I'm just going to run away from these guys. Hopefully they don't follow. Okay, so Superman Cyclone's up, Breath of Heaven's up. Attack with Foresight, get that up. Wave 100 Fists is up. Now I'm just attacking with Fist of Thunder, holding down Fist of Thunder. Oh, I forgot my mantra. And then making sure that I always have that green around me going. So now I'm running away. It's been more than 3 seconds. So now I have to buff it back up again. So I use the Foresight. Keep up the Wave 100 Fists. Don't forget your mantra. So here, I'll show you some single target DPS right here. The fear does suck, but as you can see, I'm chasing him down. Oops, I let Wave 100 Fist drop off. So now, if I can get on here, I'll show you. Um, okay, so I have the. Let me find some tougher monsters. Okay, here we go. All right, so I buffed the foresight. I got that. Everything is up right now. So I'm doing 292 damage, buffed. 292k damage buff versus completely unbuffed 199. So almost 100k more damage for this with this build when you're buffed. So that's it for cookie cutter, bigen, and trigen. And I'm just going to go over a little bit of the gear that you want with this. Like I said, the Wong Kim Lao Echoing Fury combo is really nice. You can also just go swords if you hate the fear. But every weapon should have. If you go that route, you should go crit damage, socket, and lifesteal on your weapons on both of them. In my opinion, I'm a big advocate of dual lifesteal on your weapons. Single lifesteal, is perfectly viable, except when you're fighting elites with reflect, you don't really gain the life back. You actually can lose it, or stay static with your health. You won't gain any. With this build, attack speed and crit chance is your best friend. Crit damage is after that, and dexterity obviously. Any build, anything, you want dexterity. So, I mean, you want all three: attack speed, crit chance, crit damage. But attack speed and crit chance take priority over crit damage with this build because sweeping wind cyclone. Your cyclones proc from crits, so the more often you can crit, the more cyclones you're going to proc. So, the more often you crit is based off of your attacks per second. So the more attacks you can do per second with a higher crit chance, you'll proc more tornadoes. So that's why that's a huge thing. And then you can also go with a Stone of Jordan that adds damage to your Fist of Thunder or Sweeping Wind, either or. I use my Stone of Jordan for when I'm fighting elites only. I don't use it for when I'm doing trash mobs. So, but I do believe the Stone of Jordan is the best thing, the best ring you can have for fighting elites. I mean, I don't have a ring myself that buffs my damage more than 29%, without it. So, with that being said, that's the cookie cutter, bigen, and trigen builds. Move on to other less traditional builds, or I should say, other builds that came after this build.